Hi, everybody. I wanted to do a separate video on mute groups because mute groups are not a technology that we had on the Soundcraft board, and so they're really worthy of a separate video. So to see mute groups, let's go to the Behringer and take a look. Okay, here we are. To see mute groups, we actually go to channel here. And when we go to the channel button, we see that we can take any one of these channels and put it into one of 4 mute groups. So by putting channels into mute groups, we can turn sets of channels on and off. This allows the mixed person to turn a band off, half the band off, a second band off, however you want to do it. But it allows us to turn off sets of microphones in a group. To actually do that, we come down here at the bottom and you'll see my cursor moving right here. And here we have the groups 1, 2, 3, and 4. And that's the way we actually turn the groups on and off. Now I point this out because in the video, I know my cursor is going to disappear down here. And so you'll just see the buttons turn red or go back to white. But the action is down here. And that's the way you will really follow it. So we have some mute groups that have already been set up. So let's take a look at them. So now I'm on mute group 1, and you can see that we've got the piano, the congregational left and right, which is where the congregational singing and the organ would come in, the lectern, which is where the soloist would come in, and condenser 1 and condenser 2, which is hopefully where the choir would come in. So you can imagine that mute group 1 is what we would use for congregational singing. Mute group 2 has the lectern and a set of the solo buttons open. And this is what we would use for the praise band. This is going to probably change every time we have a new praise band configuration. And it's going to be our most dynamic mute group, but this is probably where we could put the praise band. Mute group 3 has everything turned off, and we would use this for the sermon. And so we've got everything quiet. And since the sermon normally comes in through the Sennheiser, which is controlled by the Soundcraft, that won't be a problem. You'll notice that I have the pulpit mic still on because we do have pastors that want to preach through the pulpit mic. And so I leave the pulpit mic open for them. This won't cause any trouble if we're using the Sennheiser headset for the pastor because this microphone won't even be plugged in. So it really won't be an issue. Mute group 4 has the lectern turned on, and we'd use this for times when somebody is giving a presentation from the lectern, such as the deacons or a visiting person that wants to give a presentation. And so there we just have the lectern turned on. There are a couple of watch outs that we need to be careful of when we're using mute groups. The first is that if we manually set the mute on a given channel, the Behringer isn't going to touch it until we actually hit a mute group again. So let me show you what I mean. Here we have channel 4, and it has been put into mute group 3. FX4 has been put into mute group 3. So if we click 3, you'll see it comes on. And if we unclick it, it goes off. Now I'm going to come into FX4 and I'm going to set it by hand. If I hit mute group 1, you'll notice it doesn't come off. And if I unclick mute group 1, nothing happens. And in fact, nothing will happen again until I cycle it through mute group 3. Now, this was just a demonstration right here, but if you start doing manual settings, on the microphones that you're using that could cause you trouble. So the best way to get the mics turned on and off is by using the mute groups. The second watch out is that the mute groups do not toggle with each other. So let's set on mute group 3. We're listening to the sermon. Now we're going to move to the hymn, and so we're going to hit mute group 1, and nothing turns on. That's because mute group 3 didn't turn off. Once we turn mute group 3 off, all the microphones open. So this is mute groups, and the best thing to do is to take the order of worship before the service starts and walk down through the order of worship and kind of review in your mind which mute group you would use for which part of the service.